So today I wanted to talk about a few very important ideas I've been formulating for a long time that I think apply to sports and training in general, but for now I'm going to specifically talk about how it should be applied to Gimbarr in order to fix its problems and to possibly allow a revival. So we're going to start with the most basic groundwork here, and that is me proposing a new definition of what sport is. I propose that a new definition of sport should be a competitive activity which has a family of objectively related unique motor patterns of which to train by practice and derive physical adaptation from. Now let's pick apart some of the nuances here. One of the reasons this definition is much superior to the current one is that this disqualifies certain supposed sports, such as hobby horsing, for example, from being one. Hobby horsing, for anybody with half a brain, inherently gives the impression that it is not a sport, despite the fact that the current existing definition allows it to be such, due to the vague, simply competitive activity requirement. This fails my definition of sport because first, the toy horse imitation and the jumping over barriers are not related movements. Second, it is redundant since jumping over barriers itself already exists as a sport. And third, you can't derive any unique physical adaptation that won't be found in barrier jumping. So you see, my definition allows for there to be better sports than others, which is very useful rather than just accepting everything, because we're trying to find what activities are most useful towards having unique physical adaptations, which if you think about it, is the purpose of any physical activity. This is the true value of sport. It is the competition of who can make their body adapt the most into the physical requirements of performing any certain movement through training that movement. And the part of through training that movement is actually pretty important, because when you do calisthenics, you train calisthenics to get better at calisthenics. You don't go to the gym or do other activities and then hop on calisthenics and then you can do what you want. No, you need specific training. And that's all one knows. There is specific physical adaptation being derived from calisthenics, since it requires that specific training. While in many arbitrary sports, they use training calisthenics in the gym as carryover for them rather than practicing the activity itself, which then shows the physical body isn't being given any unique adaptation that can't be found in the former activities. Like, imagine trying to derive the physical adaptations from something like Nivlada y Silencia and training it without ever doing Gimbarr. You could somewhat pick apart the components of the required conditioning and strengthening of the bicep, shoulder, and pec, and the flexibility required in body twist for it, but even if you got an extremely high level in those individual components, you simply would not be able to walk up to the bar and do it, even if on paper you had those requirements, because you didn't get the unique adaptations that come from training it specifically. Well, in many other sports you can do that because there is no unique adaptation stopping you from simply walking up and doing those things automatically. Now, what does any of this have to do with Gimbarr? Well, I propose that there should be a separation between the agility category and the strength flexibility category. Not just as different categories as they are now, but as different sports. And I also propose the union of strength flexibility Gimbarr with street workout statics and the union of agility Gimbarr with freestyle dynamics. Well, why is this? The reason is very closely tied to my definition of sport. The types of adaptation in agility and strength flexibility are completely different, beyond just different categories of adaptation. Agility is not exactly physical, it is mostly mental connections and central nervous system, with some slight explosive strength and grip conditioning. Which is why gymnasts use those gloves to dodge that later part and reduce the requirements of the physical even more. While there is correlation between strength and flexibility as they are both physical, in agility they're completely unrelated since it is not so physical, so putting them under one sport doesn't make sense. Especially when there are other ones they'll be better tied to, such as street workout statics and freestyle dynamics respectively. You still already share elements to it in the first place, like Hefesto and Etrade Angel exist in both Gimbarr, strength flexibility, and statics, and 360 exists in both Gimbarr, agility, and freestyle dynamics. It will be much more useful to separate the types of adaptation like this, the physical and the mostly technical mental, into two unionized separate sports. Now, those were some of the most important aspects I wanted to talk about, but now I'll talk about some less important, but still very essential things to do in order for Gimbarr to survive, or simply just to be better organized. I propose the translation of all terms into English and the renaming of terms into more useful descriptors of what the movement is actually doing. Like, the current terminology is ridiculous, bruh. We expect something like Satan to mean a chicken wing muscle up. It's not describing anything in the movement. It's just a random word. While a pull-up makes sense, you're literally pulling up. And there's a lot of nonsense and filler terms that are just useless. Can you please just name all leg positions themselves as candado and rename the candado element to the base element, which is pulling up to anclado, with the candado position, instead of making up a term every time we do a leg position in some element that's not a candado, like illusion. Illusion is an anti-candado iglesia, Culebra is a candado iglesia, Morterio is an anti-candado 16, Kraken is an Azteca anti-candado, Domen is an Azteca candado, etc., etc. There exists no purpose for these terms and they're just using up space. There's many cases where it's not even an issue of logic like candado, but just literally making up names for elements that do not require them. Loco is a chrysallian arce, Bo is a Zestagian contra rosa, Tetsuo is a Pandorum incubital, Contra is an Anclado incubital, Unique is an Anclado in pseudo, etc. etc. again. Another change that I think aligns more with my definition of sport is stopping with the arbitrary rule of elements must end with a nivelado or an anclado. These don't have any objective basis besides a convenient agreement of what looks aesthetic, which is not what matters in sport. Again, what matters in sport is unique physical adaptations, and adaptations don't care about whether an element ends with quadro or with nivelada. So a Newton is just as valid as a yo-yo when we actually look at it in the sense of training. There are two unique patterns with separate physical adaptations worth training. For now, that's all I wanted to say. Let me know in the comments what you think, and I'll probably work towards doing these changes myself, since I already know most people in the Gimbarr community do not want these changes. But I want them, and hopefully this video maybe changed my mind, or gave more information to understand my point of view better.